We are in the first room where we pondered the so-called beginnings of the temperature. We do not discuss the rise in temperature yet, but we wonder when did people even start to understand what it means that it is a certain number of degrees today. Humans have been observing atmospheric and weather phenomena, and particularly the air temperature, as long as they have existed. But these were, in fact, purely empirical questions. Was it cold or hot? What did it feel like? The breakthrough in the research on the temperature came in mid-17th century, when the first measurement instruments were constructed. For example, a liquid thermometer or barometer. Then it became possible to take measurements, and modern climatology was born, i.e., science which draws certain conclusions about our climate or the rise in temperature. In the first room, we chose Antoni Magyar as our protagonist. Antoni Magyar was a very important figure for Warsaw. He lived at the turn of the 19th century and was very attached to the heart of the old Warsaw, namely the Old Town. He was born, lived all his life, and died in a tenement house at Piwna Street. Today, there is a sgraffito on the wall of that house, a decoration featuring his likeness, dates of birth and death, and the information that he was a Warsaw physicist and meteorologist. Antoni Magyar was famous for numerous publications about Warsaw, as well as publication on how to use thermometers, barometers. He taught about various temperature scales, and he made meteorological observations in the observatory he built at the top floor of the house where he lived on Piwna Street. On the wall on the right, you can see his portrait and Hendrik Poddębski's photo of the interior of his tenement house, where you can see the exit to the roof from which Magyar did his observations. In the middle, you can see a large printout of a meteorographic chart. It is a record of 30 years of very meticulous work by Antoni Magyar, who every day, several times a day, went out to the roof of his house and took measurements, observed the sky, and recorded all this work in a chart published as a small edition. We can take a closer look at these lines and see how the average temperature of a given month changed, its highest and lowest temperatures. We should remember, however, that it was given in different degrees than we use now. Today, of course, when we hear 25 or 30 degrees, we mean Celsius. Until the early 20th century, Réaumur scale was in use. If you look at the cabinets in the center of the room, you will see a thermometer set in a wooden case with the word Réaumur, which is a different scale from what we use today. We should remember that when we look at various old registers of meteorological observations, it was a different scale. Magyar took great care to provide access to information about weather. Every day, he would display the degrees of cold or hot on the wall of his house. He wanted people to slowly get used to the knowledge that when they feel cold, it means a certain number of degrees. He was also a kind of a walking weather forecast. It was common knowledge that when Magyar took an umbrella when he went out, it would certainly rain. Curiously enough, he was so committed to providing access to knowledge that in his will he left money to fund a sundial which you can see even today. It was only slightly damaged in the war and later restored. You can see it in the Saxon garden by the fountain. It was funded by Antoni Magyar. Information about the temperature quickly became very popular. One could see thermometers and barometers on numerous public buildings, not only on the wall of Magyar's tenement house. In the cabinet, you can see a photo by Wacław Saryusz-Wolski, where you can see the Jabłonowski Palace, the city hall at the time, and a thermometer and barometer on its wall. Similarly, thermometers were placed on pharmacies and churches. Today, we rarely find a thermometer on public buildings, but on the wall to your right, you can see St. Lawrence's Church in Wola and the close-up of the thermometer that is hanging there to this day.